Okay, attendees will come in.
Okay. And I'll watch the chat for you too while you're going, so you don't, if I have access to it.
I think you do. Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started in just a second to talk about literacy resources for youth services. So hopefully you work in the public library world. If not, hopefully you also go to the public library and you'll see these same resources there. We're going to get started in just a couple of minutes. I've got our chief cheerleader and beyond, Amy Olson, with us today from the State Library. Amy, want to say hello?
Hello, everyone.
Welcome, welcome. So if you are watching this as a recording, I'm going to encourage you to there's going to be 3 things that we learn. So if you're watching it, you might watch to the end of something and pause the tape and then try to do the things that I talked about and then start the recording again, listen and do, then listen and do for the 3rd time. If not, you're welcome to just listen all the way through if you're joining us on Memorex, as we used to say. But I'm Deborah Salyer, and I'll be your coach today, and I'm also your implementation and training specialist for this Kentucky state-funded literacy resource. And welcome to Literacy Resources for Youth Services, Teaching Books for Public Library Staff. I'm Deborah Salyer, your implementation and training specialist. I'm joined today by Amy Olson from the State Library. Amy, say hello again, please.
Hello, everybody. It's good to sort of see you here.
So to see you here. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat box. Amy and I will be keeping an eyeball on that. And of course, you can see my email on your screen. So feel free to email me afterwards if you have any questions. We'll also be taking your questions at the end of our 3 things to learn today. But I want you to think for a minute about if I were the public librarian, the children's librarian, maybe even the teens librarian, and I played this video at the end of my book club meeting, what do you suppose might happen?
From Raina Telgemeier and Scott McCloud comes a one-of-a-kind novel. Meet Michaela, Howard, Linda, and Art. Together, they form the Cartoonist Club. Join them on a journey of creativity and comics magic. Make new friends and think outside the box, way outside. So if you have a story to tell, we've just got one thing to say. Welcome to the club, the Cartoonist Club.
In the chat box, if you're following along, I would love to hear what you think might happen. So you can just pop that into the chat. Give it to everyone. My guess is you better have a lot of copies because they're going to want to read this book. First of all, it's Raina Telgemeier. Yay. But it's also Scott McCloud, and amazing, amazing book. One of my favorites for 2025. At Teaching Books, it's all about the books that you love, though. Not just my favorites or Amy's favorites. It's what books are you using? What books are your patrons reading? What books are your families being required to read from school, or are their children self-selecting for their own? We're all about the resources that deepen the understanding and bring the joy of reading. If you're new to Teaching Books, it, as I said, is all about the resources that go with those books. You will find book trailers like the one we just looked at, interviews in a multitude of formats. There are games, there are word finds and jigsaw puzzles, activity kits that you will see that we'll talk about also today. And then book guides, activities, and lessons that you can help with your homeschoolers. So we're going to talk about homeschoolers today too. Here's our agenda. We're going to start by talking about book clubs and how the resources can support the work you do with book clubs. Then we're going to move to the littles and talk about story time, unless, and this would be so great, if you from time to time read with your young adults, I would there's some resources there for you about that too. And then lastly, there's some literacy resources, many, including some brand new ones for homeschool families. And so we'll talk about titles that they might be required to read, how to plan for the learning, and also how to find books and resources that they might use. So that's where we're going to go today. So let's go, shall we? Let's start back at where we were at the top of the hour with Cartoonist Club, because remember, you can always type what you're looking for in that search box, whether it's author, title, subject, resource, whatever you want, use that box at the top. But I click on the Cartoonist Club, where I'm going to see a lot of resources, 34 resources for this book. Now, if I'm going to use this with my book club, I might use this video book trailer. Maybe I use it at the end of the book I'm already doing, so they get excited about what we're going to do next month. I can also make sure that they say Raina's name correctly by playing her audio name pronunciation.
Hello, my name is Raina Telgemeier. When I was born, it was raining outside, and my parents liked the name Reina to begin with. Reina means queen in Spanish, but it's typically spelled R-E-I-N-A. And because it was raining the night I was born, my parents decided to spell it with an A instead of an E, so R-A-I-N-A.
There you go. If you didn't know, now you know what happens behind the story. And there's also one for co-author Scott McCloud. Notice that you also see, mine says checkout in Libby. This is a new tool of Libby Discovery, where because TeachingBooks is now owned by Overdrive, we can go straight from TeachingBooks resources right into check that book out. I've seen the trailer. I want that book. So I check it out in Libby, and it's going to take me down to the book readings, and I can see, does my library have the complete ebook, or do they have the complete audiobook? And when I click here, it takes me right to my app. So whether I'm on a computer or I'm using a desktop version, here are the resources with the books all together, almost in the very same place. Going back to the top, you see featured resources, but wait, there's so much more. I can open it up and see more details about the book, like lists that it might be on, or I can even go from here to Marketplace if I want to add it to my shopping cart. Then we have our original resources. Their interviews, we have book guides, activities, and lessons, including here's an activity guide from Scholastic, and even how to make a zine, perfect for your book club. So be sure you pop open book guides, activities, and lessons, no matter what age group, whether you're a teen or children, because you might find something just for you there as well. If you're using TeachingBooks as part of collection development, you might also be looking for awards. So TeachingBooks will also give you the awards that a book is won, like Junior Library Guild, which is the first award that a book gets. And so I can type it in. Here is a typical page. And remember, one of the beautiful things about it is that I can also share this page. So if I want to send this in a newsletter, I just click share this page, and now I've got a link that I can copy and give to anyone I want. They don't have to know anything about TeachingBooks or the fact that it's state funded, but they'll have direct resource with no sign in, even though across Kentucky, and I can vouch for that myself because I was just there last week, that you can get TeachingBooks just when you open it on your phone. Just put in the website, teachingbooks.net, boom, and off you go. But you can also make a bookmark for that page. So I might give the bookmark to my teens or my preteens if we're going to do that book the next time, or stick those bookmarks inside the books that they check out, and then they have the resources and the books when they get home. Now, I knew I wanted to do the Cartoonist Club, but what if I don't know what I want to do for my book club? I can go over here to for professionals, and I can go into my library programming, where the very first thing is book clubs. So I can search by a book title or an author or illustrator, or I can start thinking about those engagement pieces and say, okay, show me which books have book trailers, Or show me which books have author name pronunciations. So that's another way that I can build on my book club experience, or I can dig into the collection of resources for children's books or teen books. So that's one way you can do it. But you can also, again, just type book clubs and you will see it's part of the library programming book kit. And there it is right there, book clubs. But you also have, yay, state library, lots of titles that you want to feature and that you can check out through your public library in your reading list. So if I go to my toggle menu and I go to your reading list, then you have all of these Kentucky lists. So I go see all the Kentucky list, and there are 9 lists. So for example, here's the children and teen book discussion kits. If I open this up, these are all books that you can check out from your public library systems. So if you have someone who comes to your library and they want that collection of Brown Girl Dreaming, then use this share link here, create that bookmark and stick it in those books, or make a flyer and stick it in the books that go when you go to check them out. And then that's another way to remind families that they have teaching books. You have, in addition to the KDLA, you have the Bluegrass Awards, so you can promote that. You also have book discussion kits for those for your littles, K-2, and the pre-K bunch. And then you have the new nominees as well as Winnie's Book Club. So you have all of those lists to draw from, Kentucky selected titles that you might promote in your book clubs. Now let's shift gears and talk about the littles. If I go to professionals and back to my library programming, you see lots of things here like book talks, programming ideas. Here's another link to those same reading lists. But let's take a peek at story time. If I look at story time, again, just like with book club, I can choose what kind of resource I want. Notice that there are story time kits. Maybe you know exactly what you want to read, but maybe you need some activities to go with it. Or you want to choose a title that has activities. There are almost 2,000 titles with storytime activity kits. For example, the ones that you see here, but then don't forget your filters, because you can narrow it down to a theme or a genre or a culture or recency, or even do a cross of resource types because it's already found the story times. I could say, okay, which ones also have a book trailer? Now I have books that have a book trailer and a story time kit. And then I can use even my filters over here by sorting. I can say, show me which ones won the most awards, because those are the books I'm more likely to have. So if I want to do a story time with I Am Every Good Thing, then I click here. I'm going to open this in a new tab in case we want to go back. 15 awards, 17 state lists. We've got an excerpt, a book trailer, author name pronunciations, 10 book guides, including activities, a United Way guide, teaching ideas, activities from Texas Library, and more. So lots of ways that you can enrich your story time with the resources that are already there. And again, you can type story time, 2 words in TeachingBooks, but I think it'll find it if they're paired, and click here and you're going to get those story time kits again. Use your filters and sort to get the titles that you want. You might also have homeschoolers that are teaching early literacy skills, or you might work with a teacher who comes in and is working with early literacy. You want to do that yourself. So you can go back into for professionals, and under professional exploration, you will see early literacy toolkit. And in this early literacy toolkit, you'll see the Scarborough reading rope, which helps us know all the parts of learning to read. But we've also broken the TeachingBooks titles down to beginning reader, early reader, and concept books, which are really helpful during a story time. So you could explore new and old resources for concept books. But we also have something you're not going to find anywhere else. What we have done is literally read book after book after book and identify books with multiple examples of phonics and phonological awareness, including alliteration and rhyming. So there's 1,600 more books, but they're all connected. They all have ways to identify. They all have titles that have multiple examples of whatever that phonics is. So for example, if I click on Last Stop of Market Street, if I go to Book Guides, Activities, and Lessons, that very first thing you say, it reinforces the ST. So throughout the reading of this book, even though it's not a decodable, it does have lots of STs in there. So you can use it to help children identify the ST sound. But wait, there's more. If you're looking for something for your centers, or you want to support your families or your early literacy teachers, you can go to the collection of printables. So I just go to the ST. And now I have 4 PDFs where I can, my young ones can practice and reinforce those skills with the ST sound. Again, you can use the share tool and send it to someone, email it to someone, print them and put them in your centers, all kinds of ways that you can use that early literacy toolkit. And there are other resources in there that you might want to take a peek at, things like vocabulary graphic organizers, comprehension graphic organizers, and even instructional routines, where to put your tongue, how to move your mouth. Adult does this, child does that. So that's part of the early literacy toolkit. But you also have, I'm sure you have lots of homeschools. So let's go back to our main button, so to speak, and let's take a peek at the resources that are available for families that are homeschooling. So as there are on TeachingBooks many places to get to the same place, you can find resources for a specific book. So again, using the author or the title to search for that book. You can also, again, browse for specific resource types. Maybe they need a primary source, so they need an author interview. Maybe they need to, they want an activity like a reader's theater script. Maybe they need to know where the book came from. The Meet the Author recordings are there for that. But it's also important to plan for the learning. So we've looked at the early literacy resources, but TeachingBooks can be overwhelming. So one way we help with that is the teaching ideas. And every month you will see new, quick ways to support literacy with different themes. For example, it's back to school. So I go back to school and you will see ways to promote the TeachingBooks resources in the first section, plan a getting to know you activity, explore back to school lists, make your own list, and then activities like icebreakers, ways for students to get to know each other. So these might be activities that you also, there's so much about library work that crosses over, right? So activities that you might use in your book clubs or story times to get kids to know each other. So that was in teaching ideas. And then also as you're helping families with homeschooling, connecting to the standard. So if they're teaching history at home, I can click on the history standard and get examples of history standards and resources that support that standard in the work. And again, all of these pages can be shared. Just click that and send it to the family member who asked you about that. There's also multi-level lessons for a variety of genre and formats of titles so that parents can have an assessment piece and students or children can record their thoughts. And there's levels of difficulty, 1 to 3 or 4, where students can write about plot and theme and character and problem and all those kinds of things. So there's lots of resources to help families with teaching students at home. Now, as adults are finding titles that they want, of course, remember that they can make a list. Maybe that student is learning Hamlet at home, and that's one of his required titles. So I can just simply click add it to reading list and make a new list, and then continue to add titles as I find them. Teachers at that point, or families, adults at that point, will need to be signed in, and it will prompt them to do that, or it will prompt you to do that. You can see it says my name, welcome Deborah, at the top. Where do your lists go after you make them? Over here under your reading list. We looked at the Kentucky list, but we also have lists that we make ourselves. And so here are those lists. And again, those lists can be shared. So there are lots of ways to use TeachingBooks for literacy, whether you're using them for a book club or for homeschools, etc. But let's suppose you don't remember what I said. You can just type help in that box, and you have a homework help, which is great for helping those kids who come in and help you ask for help. But the help button will take you to video tutorials, ways to share and promote. There's some frequently asked questions, but you can always contact us. Real people will answer the phone and answer your questions. Training, as you see, is available, but if you want something at your own system, or just contact me, and I'm happy to help you with that. Today, we've talked about book clubs and story time, homeschoolers. There's so much more. I hope you will join the Kentucky webinar series for TeachingBooks from now until the end of the year. My question to you is, what will you do? Maybe you want to go back and think about lists that you've got around your library. Instead of just giving them a list of books, don't miss an opportunity to engage them in the books. Turn those lists into a shareable list with a QR code that can go home at the end of a program or be posted around the children or teens section. Use that sharing tool. Think about ways you can connect to the homes, whether it's a bookmark or putting a label using the sharing tool inside the book. Or there's even shelf talkers that you can put in your displays. Lots of ways to keep literacy at the forefront of the things that you're doing in your library. So what will you do? I want to know. We want to know at TeachingBooks. Send us pictures, ask us questions. We are here for you. We want to thank you for all the work that you are doing now. SHU summer reading is about over. You can recover and head off to back to school to help those students who come and the families who are part of your community. Thanks for all you're doing, and thanks for joining us today.